Namaste. Welcome back, beautiful souls. Today's discussion is regarding the World card, Le Monde, in the Tarot of Marseille. And I'm going to be sharing with you some historical decks and various variations of this card, as well as reflecting on the relationship between the wheel and the world, as well as some of the symbols that commonly appear in the world card. So I thought today I would start with the Fine dalla Torre, which is in the center of the table. This is such an interesting depiction. Feels in a way the fact that the wheel that the figure stands upon is divided into 4 quadrants. That is definitely a familiar theme, and I find it so interesting that I get a Hermes kind of vibe from the figure that is atop this this wheel or this wreath. And you can also see in the distance that there is indeed perhaps a rising sun or something there. And for those of you that work with Golden Dawn inspired decks, that makes this all the more interesting, the fact that the sun is behind the center of this wheel upon which this Hermes-like figure stands. We see the wings at the feet as well as in the crown. And let me see if I can zoom in a little bit so you can see the face more clearly. Hello, Arya. Namaste. A very feminine looking face. So the theme of androgyny or the androgynous figure is certainly present historically through many variations of this particular card. You can see the armor over the front, but also it doesn't feel like a bit of a swollen belly, also hinting to the birth of something. And perhaps this swollen belly feels like it could mimic the mandorla that we see in cards a little bit later on. There's so many details in this card that feel I like this world card. It seems to acknowledge in a way all that I have moved through. And so now, rather than falling off the wheel, I am standing upon the wheel in the place of the Sphinx, or in the place of whatever figure you're familiar with at the top of the wheel. And in this deck, let's just look at these 2 cards. So unlike many Tarot de Marseille, where on the left side of the wheel you have either a human falling or a monkey-like figure falling, we have humans all over this particular wheel. And the figure in the wheel is also human atop. It's not a sphinx. And similar orb is being held in the opposite hand. So is there a message here in the switching of the hand? Well, that's what I'm thinking, Arya, that the figure looks pregnant. Now, for those of you that have studied this card and read various discourses on it, let me get the noble here. Right, this figure where we see definitely the more masculine square hips, often the legs are quite thick, and yet we have female breasts. And of course, long hair was very common, more common in men than I mean, today maybe it's popular in some groups. So this figure is thought to represent Christ, or we could, in extension, say the deity, or your own personal deitization. This I'm hesitating because I often use yogic terms, and I know that's not relatable for some people, but in the journey through the judgment card, we find ourselves in a higher frequency, and that's a term that resonates more with me rather than connection to deity, because then I'm thinking of various avatars that we have seen on this earth, and of course Jesus was one of them. So we will look at the shift of this form across various decks, and it's the nuances and the ways that we can see both the masculine and the feminine form in the figure throughout history. So for me, there's definitely a statement here. In the position of that wheel, perhaps even the adornment of it, as it comes to the foreground and the figure stands upon it, victorious and perhaps even healed. Very powerful that the rod of Asclepius is in the right hand of the figure in the world card. Now the orb, if you look at the orb across various decks, you will find it in some cards, and in the Fine della Torre, that orb appears in a whole bunch of cards. We see something similar in Justice, the Emperor, very similar to the orb in Justice. And here we have the Empress, and you'll notice we can see a similarity in the perhaps pregnant belly of the Empress with the figure in the world card. And the ribbons, the celebratory lines and splashes that are in the background as well too, feel like a bit of a parade, a ticker tape parade. And I got to thinking about the Chariot as well too. And in this deck, the Charioteer also holds a similar orb. And then my mind wandered to the Sphinx, and how the Sphinx became a part of this card, and how the Sphinx sits atop the world card in many decks, and the connection between the metaphor of the Sphinx and this whole journey. And one of the things that, I love doing these wandering journeys through cards, decks, because it gives me time to build an even more layered repertoire of associations among cards. And if I need a particular card to illustrate a point, then I will go and find that pack of cards and bring it out. And if it's for my own study, then I will look at it, but I may also pull it out so that a querent can understand the point I'm trying to make. Arya says, Mercury is often thought to be androgynous, and the wand with the snakes, Mercury's special totem as Zeus's messenger, along with the wings on the hat and the sandals. Yeah. So what is this connection here between Mercury and the world. Well, this is, I feel the healing aspect of the Mercury Hermes Asclepius mythology is highly significant here, in that the journey through these 21 arcana is indeed a journey of healing. And, in the end, we are healed. Hello, Dee. Namaste. So maybe we should start with the ones that are a little different, and then we can, I'm not sure how I want to approach this. It does paint a very, this is the Jacques Villevie by Flournoy, the restoration by Flournoy. And I have two variations of these cards printed in different directions. And the ones that I'm showing you are the most common views of these cards. What did I want to say? If indeed this is a representation of Christ in their femininity, their softness, their ability to nurture the world, to nurture fellow man. And there's something about this contemplation that fits indeed with the choice of the Mercury figure in the previous card, and the idea of the healing and nurturing. And it would be really interesting to look at the etymology of some of these words and to really understand what that meant at a spiritual level, an emotional level, and a physical level through the ages. And I find it really interesting how man, the portrayal of the sort of man or the monkey on the left side of the wheel is overcome. We have endured, we have journeyed through that part of the process, and the angel now emerges through the mandorla or the womb or the vesicapiscus, or you name the circle, the wreath that appears here, whatever word matches your, I want to say the most, where you can make most connection. But whatever figure is emerging through there, we see a halo in this particular deck, and there's this energy of, like I said earlier, it's a beautiful frequency. If you are seeing yourself in the cards, your energy has shifted, and here you are at the precipice of this opening, ready to be born again, ready to move through, to approach things fresh and new, and fully supported and harmonized and balanced by all of this energy that surrounds you. And whether you see it as the four fixed signs of the cosmos or the four evangelists, it is a powerful energy. Hi, Perry. Welcome. And when I was looking at the large picture book that I have, the one by Barbier, I quite like when the mandorla does take on more of a almond shape, then it feels more connected the um, to the female parts, whether it's the cervix or um, it's an emergence through the womb. And then that also connects more clearly to the energy of the vesica piscis. And that all brings in so many great layers here to give hope and possibility and expansion for the question that's being asked in the reading. And I feel like the message, regardless of the deck, is that you are standing here at the beginning of something really beautiful, and simultaneously this also acknowledges a long and sometimes arduous process that we have been through to get where we are. And I think it is equally important to acknowledge the beginning and the end when this card arises. This is the Alpha and the Omega. This is the whole. Some would describe this card as the Orphic egg. And that I'm just thinking of what happens in the moon card in the Wildwood Tarot. The egg is underneath the water, and the way that deck deals with this final series of cards from moon to sun to judgment to world. And the more familiar you are with how this iconography varies among a variety of decks, you can build in these beautiful stories into your readings. And I'm sure you've all seen these kinds of images here, and this is certainly that similar vibe of emergence through the cosmos, almost like a cosmic, energetic healing. Let's go to Perry and then D. Women are always extremely sensitive to the heart of our existence and our civility through our own individual interests and attentions to live and love and sensuality. The person that's standing on a wheel is a very typical representation of the geocentric view of the world in the Middle Ages. It might be the New Jerusalem on earth. The resurrection is over. Thank you, Dee. Also notice that in this particular deck, we do not have the crossed leg, which is a conversation that occurs in many a deck. And you do not see the leg crossed over in the Noble, nor do you see it in the Soprafino or the Vachetta Tarot of the Master. So the story of how and when deck creators began to cross over that leg and either mirror something that was going on in the Hanged Man card or even the Emperor card. I think if you're working with that deck, then that brings in kind of a bold conversation, but it is, I would say, important to know that it wasn't necessarily always that way. We are standing both feet on the ground. This is, sorry, it's not very well focused here. Let's see if I can. This is the Sopraffino, the Il Meninghello Sopraffino. And the artwork is just beautiful. And you can see how the four evangelists, the symbols, there's a bit of anthropomorphization, and in some of them you'll also see that it looks a bit like a mask. So we're not indeed looking at an animal, but we're looking at a human through the energy of an animal. The deck that's on the table right now is the Noble, the Flournoise. Okay, so I'm going to zoom back out, and then we compare some other details. One of those details is the order of the symbols that are around the card. Now, generally speaking, we'll just keep these three on the table right now. We have the animals of the earth on the earth, upon the ground. And the lion usually is on the right side and the bull on the left side. So that does make sense. And then above we have the eagle and the angel. And even from what I have been reading, older historical context, that the zodiacal correspondences certainly would have been understood along with the evangelical representations, whether this is referring to a passage in Revelations, or this is going back to Ezekiel. The thing I like about, there's so many things. The Sopraffino tarot, the wreath, the mandorla, there's so much abundance in this card. And the wreath, even in the Noble, it's very full. And I can see, it feels to me like the figure is moving closer, is moving towards us, like they will be emerging through there. And you can see in the Jacques Vieilleville tarot, the feet of the figure are on the wreath, perhaps about to come through. I am also intrigued with the discussion of, now in the Noble we have a cape, and the fabric, whether it looks like fabric or in some of the later decks it looks more like a ribbon, often changes color. So it will morph from one color to another, and that may also help to bring in the energy of both the yin and the yang that is represented in the figure here. And you can see in the Jacques Vieilleville we have red on the figures on their right side and blue on the left. So we have both the blue, let's say the blue of Mary, and the red of the masculine energy. there's something here too about protection. I feel that when this card arises, one of the reasons for its positive quality is the level of protection that surrounds you. And while there is a sense of vulnerability and not knowing what is emerging on the other side, you carry a lot of experience and even wisdom with you. And I know the conversation, the energy of wisdom is often part of this discussion as well too. And some tarologists use the word knowledge and wisdom synonymously, and I'm very careful to pay attention to how those words are used. And I feel like the journey much earlier on in the major arcana has to do with knowledge. And here in this emergence, we begin to have at least a glimpse of what wisdom may represent. In traditional European art, Mary is associated with blue and Jesus with red. So we have the both here. Mm-hmm. And you can see that also in the cape of the noble, a little bit of blue behind the legs and red revealing on the right hand of the figure themselves, not as we look at the card. Now another change, or there's different observations. So when we're looking at the Conver deck, this is Jodorowsky's deck. Jodorowsky's interpretation of the Conver deck. He talks about a vessel that this figure holds in their right hand, and then the wand is held in their left hand. And so the vessel is the receptive element held in the active hand, and the wand is the active element held in the receptive hand, also symbolizing a completion, right, an integration of sorts, which we did talk about in Temperance. But here in this final card of the major arcana, we look for this in different ways, in different layers, levels of integration. This, what is the right word? This particular charm that I wear, that's not the word I was looking for, was created by Tulku, the artist of Tulku art and the Tulku oracle. And I looked through all of the choices for pendants that I could choose, and I asked the creator, sorry, her name is eluding me right now, if she sensed an energy, amulet is the word I'm looking for, if she sensed an amulet that would match my energy. And I forget which one she said, and it just didn't feel quite right. And I spent a lot of time looking at the amulets. And this particular energy feels so very important to me as a regular observation, in that I want to acknowledge always and strive always for this idea of strength and power in my receptivity and softness in my activity. And then also choosing this amulet in silver, connecting that to the moon, felt very, very important. And it's funny that Arya mentions well here. I also see that as well too within this symbol. And of course, when I wear it, it hangs in this direction. So the almond is in a different position. What I'm saying here is that these lessons in the tarot that we get hit with again and again and again are so important to integrate. And here in this final card, if you are paying attention, you're seeing it in a variety of ways, from the androgyny or of the body, or the symbolic androgyny of the body, to the changing colors of the scarf, to the variety of objects that the figure may be holding in their right, left hands, and even in other ways, in other cards. And that, I feel, gets lost. The importance of that can get lost when this card is interpreted as the world, or the planet, or planet Earth itself. And in that sense, we have a connection to the abundance, for certainly the fulfillment of the journey on this, in this world, this planet, this dimension. But there are other subtle layers that seem to not to come through. Perry, energetic alignment with the mystery of life unfolding, with love and harmony and peacefulness and joyous celebration of our existence. This emergence, into the mystery of life. So what I'm picking up here is that as we emerge through this mandorla, and if you picked up on the word initiation in the previous card, here it's almost as if we have accepted that we are one with the mysteries of life. And that language I can definitely work with. On a mundane level in the tarot, of course, we need to dial this down quite a bit, but we have these emergence, like these moments in life where we may not recognize the significance of an ending, and how, and all that is unfolding for us, and why this ending is appearing in the way it is. I'm thinking of a situation where perhaps in a reading you have a Tower card, and then very close to it you would have a card such as this. It would bring a sense of hope and purpose, meaning to the drasticness of the change that you are moving through. And I look at those words that Dee just put into the chat. And if you look at the Roman numerals, 10 as the wheel, and X, X plus 1, double change, but also 1 symbolizing the whole. It all just kind of fits and paints this beautiful picture for this card. Let's look up at a couple of others that I have on the table. This is the Vachetta Tarot, and you see that, or I feel that sense of abundance. One thing I haven't mentioned, and I think it's confusing in this card about the direction that the figure is facing. And depending on how deep you have gone with directions, rights and lefts, and I never want to get too stuck on it, but I would say that this figure is emerging towards whatever is on the right side of the reading, or even right and maybe slightly below of the reading as they are coming forth and out of this card. But if the right symbolizes a reflection of the past, one thing that certainly connects with me is that it's a acknowledgement of the spiral of life, the fact that there is no beginning, there is no end, and that everything indeed is connected. In the Gaspin Tarot, there is no color change on the scarf like there is in the Jean-Pierre Payen. Other than that, I mean, of course, the Gaspin Tarot has some really interesting color changes. It is one of my favorite decks. But again, I think we need to, there's something to that. And maybe when all is said and done here, I want to be doing more readings with Tarot de Marseille, and that the deck that I select to do that with will need to have most of these significant nuances that I have been observing over this past year. And that is kind of hard. Like, is there, for me, a perfect Tarot de Marseille that includes all of these nuances? And certainly this is the Renault, right? Yes, the Renault restoration of the Madani Tarot. And I think this is the one that I'm going to be working with most. I really, really do like this deck and all that. It seems like the creator and the restorers have really paid attention. So is there anything that I have missed that you would like to bring forward? I do. I mean, you know that I teach, right? I tarot, and my courses are based in Golden Dawn decks. And this is a card that I have looked at over and over again. And when I look at if I look at the figures around the corners as zodiacal representations, and the first fixed sign in the zodiacal year is Taurus, and then we have Leo, and then Scorpio, and then Aquarius. Certainly the order fits, and the wheel turning counterclockwise also aligns these symbols perfectly with zodiacal correspondence. And yet I'm also aware and open to other interpretations as well too. The eagle D is the higher frequency of Scorpio. So Scorpio is scorpion. Some would say there's a scorpion and snake and then eagle, and sometimes the eagle is also interpreted as a phoenix. Yeah. And then the angel in contemporary decks looks a lot more like the water bearer, and you can see the water containers held in the hands of the figure on the top left. And so I guess the piece that I haven't found yet, and that will be part of my ongoing study, is the question about the leg. So you'll see here that in all of these cards, the left leg is bent behind the knee of the right leg. And as I pointed out in the earlier decks, and I can't necessarily say earlier because I know the Soprafino was a little bit later, but we can use the Noble as a reference. And certainly the left knee is bent, but we don't have this position that is really familiar here. And yeah, the animals are representations of the fixed signs, the centers of each of the seasons, as well as symbolic of the four evangelists. Yeah. And then, of course, that also connects us to the four elements. So we have this card of fulfillment, and as I mentioned, balanced and great protection, for your balanced protection for your journey forward. Yeah. Okay. So I look forward to your additional comments and questions. And next week, we will complete this discussion with the Fool card. And then I have many other questions. So we'll see where I go from there. And part of that process may be choosing my working Marseille deck. I've got a list of questions, as well as some other questions that arose during this series for comparing and contrasting certain cards. So if you have Tarot de Marseille, and again, this includes decks that are not necessarily of French origin. I've shared with you many Swiss decks, many Italian decks, and so all of these historic decks I'm including in this exercise, as well as some contemporary ones as well. Okay, so thank you for your contributions. Have a lovely rest of your day. Namaste.